Hello and welcome to this latest installment of the NIMSY Live event series. I am your host, Tucker Johnson, and today we're starting a conversation about content management with our resident client-side expert here at NIMSY Insights, Giulia Greco. And this is going to be part of our ongoing continuing education series. It's not a NIMSY Live episode. Those are all archived over on our YouTube channel, which, by the way, you should subscribe to if you haven't already done so. We are coming to you semi-live today on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, YouTube, of course. I say semi-live because this is actually a recorded thing. I got double booked, so as soon as I record this, I'm going to push it live. Long story, doesn't matter to you. You don't care about that. Let's get right into it. Well, before we get right into it, I did want to plug some stuff that's coming up. Exciting stuff here at NIMSY Insights. If you haven't already heard about our ongoing event series here, our in-person event series, we have the LSP Reset Workshop. This workshop is amazing. I haven't participated in it myself, but I've talked to lots of people that have, and lots of great feedback for the LSP Reset Workshop. The next one's coming up in Prague, so make sure that you are signed up for that. Also, join us at Loc World in Monterey. Our guest today, Giulia, will be there, as will I for a short bit, and a bunch of other NIMSY Insights guests. So, without further ado, let's get into it today. Today, we're diving into the challenge every global business faces, content prioritization. With the explosion of digital content and the rise of AI, companies can no longer afford to translate and localize everything. The key question is, what content really deserves your attention, budget, and effort? To help us unpack this, I'm joined by Giulia Greco, author of NIMSY's two-part series on content prioritization. Giulia lays out a practical framework for deciding which content to localize, when to do it, and how to adapt strategies based on risk, market opportunity, and business priorities. We're going to explore her concept of minimal viable localization, look at how companies can categorize content to make smarter decisions, and talk about why prioritization in itself can become a competitive advantage. Giulia, welcome back to the show here, the episode. It's good to have you.
Thank you. It's always nice to hang out with you, Tucker, and having our chats about all things localization and this time content. Yes, content prioritization, so important.
I love it. Yeah, and we were just talking about a little bit before here. For those, we have 30-year veterans of the industry. We have students of the industry starting here. So talk to me a little bit. What is content prioritization? Just set the scene for us.
Yes, so I think that, the people that have been in localization for a while, they'll know immediately, they know because they've encountered it, or instinctively they understand what it means. But to your point, there are students and there are more junior people that follow us, and I think it's important to explain this well. So not all content is created equal, and very simply put, not all content requires to be localized or requires the same level and depth of localization. Just like not all localized content requires the same level of quality.
Which is kind of hard, and that's another point. We're going to get to that, right? But it's kind of hard for a lot of us localization professionals because we're true believers at heart. We usually speak multiple languages. A lot of us are ex-linguists. We care passionately and deeply about language, and we focus a lot on ideals. Ideally, all content is localized into all languages at the same level of quality. So when we're talking about prioritization, we have to talk about scarcity. You only have so much budget, right? And you've worked on the client side your whole career. Can you tell us about an example of when this has come up and you've had to make some tough decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're 100% right. In an ideal world, everything gets translated, everything gets localized. Also because it's also an accessibility issue, and I love that argument. It's like, well, your content needs to be accessible, hence it needs to be understood in another language. So you're now entering the accessibility viewpoint, which is also intertwined with compliance. And that's one thing. But when we're not concerned about compliance, regulations, and accessibility that are mandated by law.
Spoken like a true Canadian, worried about
Yeah.
compliance up there.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a thing.
sometimes you have to localize into certain languages.
You do.
Canada's an
Right.
example of that. You have to localize
Absolutely,
into French.
it's a bilingual country, and you have to, especially if you're, if you're being, if you're targeting Quebec, or even if you're not, but you have Quebec users and Quebec and other francophone, but mainly Quebec, because the regulations are all coming out of Quebec, and it's political and it's important, and you can get in serious trouble, and there are some serious fines, and they become more and more serious for repeat offenses, etc. So, but that's an whole other topic maybe. But yes, to go back, why? Because resources are a finite thing. They're not infinite. There's only so much money, so much time, so much energy, so many hours in a day that a team can work. And so ultimately, if you have the approach of localizing everything, you're going to end up running out of money, or having, if you're in a growth situation where budgets are not an issue, your budgets will become very, very bloated. And eventually that growth will plateau, and eventually someone will come knocking at your door and looking at how much money you're spending, and at the fact that maybe you're not concentrating your efforts where they matter. Ultimately, I think that the difficulty is when you are starting from an idealistic perspective, is making that mental jump to the fact that language is not the be all and end all, is not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is the business objective, or
Right.
your company, of where you're doing localization. So why are you localizing? Why?
And this is something dev teams have this principle. They've had this principle for a long time. Minimal viable product. Every software developer, every product person knows the concept of MVP, minimal viable product, and that's where you get this term MVL, minimal viable localization. I'm just going to bring up your research here.
By the way, I didn't coin this, and this article was.
Oh, come on, take credit for it.
Okay, I'm taking credit, but I'm also throwing a bone at our good old expert Miguel, because he did this 5 years ago, and he proposed the acronym of MVL.
Plug for yolocaliso.com. Go check out Miguel's stuff. He publishes great content.
Exactly, and he's great, and he actually reviewed, approved, and gave me the blessing for my revamping of these articles. So, but yeah,
I've stolen Miguel's ideas before too. So
I'm sure
I give him credit.
Yeah. So we all. I mean, we're lucky here in NIMSY because everybody's super smart, right, and we can just steal each other's ideas and make them our own, because everybody says very important and right stuff. So it's like, yeah, I mean, when you have a group of experts, obviously we are all influencing each other. So that makes sense. Sure. So MVL, yes, it's basically, it gives you a framework, a way of thinking about it, where instead of trying to localize everything, and especially instead of trying to localize everything from the beginning, which is really hard to do, you identify the most important content that needs to be translated first to attract and serve the new customers effectively. And that will change depending on, who you are, what your service or product is, what type of, team and resources you have, what is the business strategy, what are your stakeholders expecting. All of these factors factor in, obviously. And then you can move to, phase 2, phase 3, etc., and you continue. Very, very often what happens is that when a company is not international and decides to go international, they just start throwing spaghetti at the wall, as I like to say. They're like, we'll translate everything. Let's just translate. And it's like,
because it's cheap and it's free. We can use machine translation.
Yeah, it's free. You use machine translation, you use the AI. Yeah. Then you're like, oh, wait, we need an infrastructure for that. Yeah. We need some tools. And that's where the friction begins, right? You start like, oh, okay, there's actually a cost, but it's an infrastructure cost. So it's still okay. Yeah. If you're doing machine translation, it still has a cost. It's not as expensive as having,
and like you say, you need infrastructure, you need guardrails around it.
Yeah, you need guardrails, and then you need maybe people that are managing that.
And you need to screw up a few times and embarrass yourselves before you realize that you need people, usually, right? Yeah, we know it. It's the life cycle of the new localization program, right?
Exactly.
Some
So you
poor
need
marketing manager, some poor 23-year-old marketing manager who took a semester of Spanish in college. It says, hey, you're in charge of localization now. And builds a program and goes through the learning. I love those programs because it's an exciting time to start your career in localization. And it's people that you can really benefit from talking to Giulia Greco at Localization World, to listening to podcasts, to, you know what I'm saying? It's an exciting time when you're learning about all that
it
stuff.
is an exciting time because there's so much to do, but also because no matter what you do, you will get some results. Because as I always said, if there's nothing and then you have something, inevitably the growth will be up and to the right. Like if you had just English and suddenly you're doing some stuff in 4 languages, inevitably you will have some type of growth. And that's exciting. And it gives you, it makes people feel like, okay, this is the right track. We should keep going. Then why stop at 4 languages? Why not do 20? Why not do 30? Why not do 40? Whatever.
And you start building business cases, backing it up with data, because now you're collecting data, you're learning, right?
Exactly. And then you start realizing that, hey, maybe what we're putting out there is not well translated. Maybe some markets are more important than others, and not because we want to be exclusionary, but because, the overall company strategy may be focused on, Latin America or Asia or EMEA or whatever it is. Like, so it makes sense to adjust your efforts to the overall strategy and roadmap of the rest of your company. And if there is no strategy or roadmap for the rest of your company, then you should be the one who does that.
And that's an excellent opportunity to fill a void, to add value where it's needed, right? By helping guiding corporate strategy as far as international expansion. And that's the ultimate goal, be part of go-to. Don't just be localization, be go-to-market. No. Right?
Be something. Be go-to-market and being the international expansion expert, be the one who talks to the revenue teams or the salespeople and the marketing team, and if there are people in country, to those people in country, find out what they're saying, what they care about, what their pain points are, what is the friction that your product or service is encountering in that market. I mean, if I think back in my early years when I was at Shopify, the first couple of years, at all the friction points that I collected about Shopify in Italy, because I entered to serve the Italian market initially, because I'm originally from there and I'm mother tongue Italian. And, I ended up like just logging all of the things that were problematic, that wouldn't work, or they weren't sufficient to expand more in Italy. It was amazing. And then I would run around the company, is like literally and metaphorically, trying to find product managers that I could talk to and be like, listen, the hardware that we have is not working in Italy, and here's why. And sometimes people were like, just like, okay, I gotta stay focused on my stuff. Nice. And then and sometimes you would find people that instead were like into it and would want to listen, and try to do something about it. And then eventually, you form the committees and you form the teams that care about this, and you try to influence your leadership. And it's usually very exciting time, because it's very chaotic. It's absolutely, growth oriented, and it's very exciting. And it can also be exciting and frustrating at the same time.
And all of this, gathering all of these requirements, talking to different people, understanding what the senior leadership strategy is when it comes to international expansion, these are all ways to inform your framework. So I want to talk about 2 more things. So we're going to keep this a short conversation today because I double booked. I'm sorry. But I want to talk about language tiers first, and then talk about utilizing those to build part of a content prioritization framework, because those are 2 things that you go into in depth in your articles, 2-part series here, and I'll let the viewers, listeners go read the full articles if they want the full thing. So talk to me about language tiers.
Yes. So language tiers is basically grouping languages by, you can show an example.
Yeah.
So this is just an example. It's not to be lifted and adopted blindly
Right. Thanks for
by
clarifying.
everybody. It's yeah. I want to say that it's like it says example tier structure. So you have different dimensions. You want to have a matrix framework where you're evaluating the markets and the language that goes with the market. Ideally, the presence. What do you have there already? Do you have a legal entity in these markets? Do you have in-country teams? Are they sales team, partners teams? It doesn't matter, but are there some teams? Is it fully built out? Do you have marketing and activation teams? Because that, to me, tells me that you're already pretty far down investment. Like there's definitely an intention to stay and grow in that market versus let's just have an online presence, for example. And then you want to look at your product or service. Is it localized? Is the products and the UI actually already localized, or nothing and we have to start from scratch now? Do you have like support that goes along with it? Do you have localized support documentation? Do you have possibility to have a chat bot or a chat or email support that's multilingual? And that's easy to do nowadays. There are so many automated tools that can help that. So I would say that's like one of the low-hanging fruit that people should definitely focus on if they're just starting out and there's nothing else in place. If you are selling something, is your e-commerce localized already? Do you have localized checkout? And for the record, having a translated checkout is usually a requirement to be compliant in pretty much everywhere. And so it needs to be, I'm sorry, I'm having some technical issues here in the background with the printer.
Well, and this is a part of too, is like, this is a big part. I think I have a whole section on this in our workshop that we teach on building a language quality assurance framework, right? It's not just about business. It's about, just not all languages are created equal. And I always kick myself when I say that. That's not true. Not all language, because then I get people in the comments saying all languages are important, and they are. All languages are important. Let's just say
it's
the
not, it's
return
not
on
an
investment
ideological,
is not the same for all languages, and we need to make business decisions in a time of scarcity. So that's why it makes a lot of sense to tier these out into tier 1, full quality control review, everything gets localized. Tier 2, maybe we just localize the important stuff. Tier 3, machine translate stuff,
Exactly.
And like I said, that's not a one size fits all, but it also leads us into this. You talk more about creating a content hierarchy, creating a full framework for all of this in part 2 of your article series here. And you talk about the cost, speed, and quality trade-offs. And I mean, to me, this is kind of like common sense. It's the golden triangle. Do you want it quick? Do you want it fast? Or do you want it done right?
Exactly.
And you got to have those trade-offs in these.
Yeah. So first of all, when we're talking, I want to say something because this is important, like to your point, like it's not an ideological stance. None of this is, but this is war, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking
war.
about,
you got to triage.
of course, yeah.
Right?
So languages are like, of course all languages are important. If you just leave it at that, period, end of story, absolutely. But we're talking about language. The way I conceive of it is more like language as a product, right? When a company hires me or hires you to be the localization leader and deliver, language is considered a product at the service of other business needs. It's not the be all and end all. That's what we mean when we say some languages are more important than others. That it's almost like there's a product and these are the features of this product. So the various languages become almost like the feature, and some features are more important than others. Why? Because you have more people that potentially are your target audience. And so that language becomes really very, very important. If you are targeting, a certain geographical area, you will pay more attention to that geographical areas versus the ones where your product doesn't even work and doesn't have a presence. Why translating to that? It makes no freaking sense. This is just common sense that I'm hoping that everybody understands that that's what we're talking about. So having said that, back to what is it you were showing? Yes, the translation.
This, and then I'm just going to speak through this because, hey, Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. The point of this podcast is to drive traffic to my website. So go check out the full article if you want to
Yeah.
speed through this. But
it's ungated. So I think some articles you just have to put the thing so that we can capture your email, but we're not like you don't need a membership, you don't need to pay. It's all available, so you can read, you can study, you can use your content for your own, to prepare your own deck to look good with your own leadership. So do it, definitely do it.
Steal our ideas and make them your own and make them
look like free education.
Exactly.
Yes. It's free education we're giving. So yes, so cost, speed, and quality trade-offs. This is to your point, it's a classical triangle. So high investment is where you want your high-end content, the stuff that you cannot mess up, otherwise there will be bad consequences. So, you have your like high risk, high impact. You only get, what is it they say, you don't get a second opportunity to make a first good impression or something like that. So your website, your marketing material, your marketing automation email campaigns, because when you send an email, there's no pulling back that email. So if it's poorly translated and there's a mistake, that mistake lives on forever and you will be ridiculed for that. Whereas other types of content, like let's go to the bottom, like support documentation, help center type of stuff. I've always said this is something that, the people that work with me heard ad nauseum me saying this, but people don't go on your help center looking for beautiful prose.
No.
They go to the help center in another language because they have a problem and they need to figure out to self-serve a solution. They need to figure out how to solve that problem.
And they're already pissed off. If they're visiting your help documentation, they're already pissed off. So
yeah, or they're stressed, they're frustrated, they're stressed, they have a problem that they need to solve. And so the translation needs to be correct, but it doesn't matter if it sounds a little clunky, if it's not the most beautiful, fluent sounding native. It's like, does it solve my problem? Do I understand enough to solve my problem? Yes, boom, done, moving on. And nobody's gonna come back and be like, hey, this sounds like a translation. Yeah, who cares? It's a help center. It doesn't matter that it sounds like a translation, as long as it's correct. Now, be careful though, because the help center usually has terminology that's important because it refers to your UI.
Right.
So you need to make sure that there are no mistakes in the way it refers to, maybe not even mistakes, but inconsistencies with how things are called in your UI, the terminology that's used. It needs to map 100% correctly to your help center. Otherwise, the whole point of having a self-serve support system fails. So that's like a point of failure. So terminology remains very important in this.
It needs to be accurate.
It needs to be accurate, but the natural sounding or the let's adopt the transcreation approach obviously doesn't stand in this type of content. It's very, very valuable when you're talking about marketing, growth, advertisement, and other, as I said, email marketing type of contents that are high impact and high risk. And then in the middle, you have other things that these are the portions, these are the buckets of content and text that can vary significantly depending on the industry that you're in and the type of service or product that you're localizing. So I would argue that product UI is important, and it's sometimes gnarly to do well because of the way the TMSs are or CATUs are set with the segmentation and the fact that whoever's translating, being MT or a human, may not have the full visibility in what that looks like in a real environment, like once it's live. And so mistakes can happen because of that. And there are mitigation systems that you can explore, of course, with your vendors and your tech stack and your developers, etc. But like the UI is kind of, it's important. It's a little bit below, I want to say, your website, but not much below. But then you can.
I like to think of it as pre-sales, post-sales, right?
Yeah.
So if you're the UI, it's post-sales. You've already got their money. right?
Yeah. That's
I mean, it needs to be
mercenary way of
good if you
looking at
want
it,
to
I
keep
guess.
getting their
You're
money,
right. That's a
but
very good point.
you're not
Yes,
trying to
yes,
change
yes.
hearts and minds with UI.
No. You've already done that because you've
Exactly.
done a stellar job with your marketing and landing page and all that. So boom, you're right. And then there's like, for example, there could be educational content, webinars, there could be some technical documentation. There's legal stuff. Okay, let's talk about legal because this is
Okay.
so fascinating to
Yeah.
me. Terms and conditions, privacy policies, GDPRs, banners, cookie banners, all of that fun, not stuff. Absolutely must be translated.
Yeah.
It needs to be done
By a lawyer.
right. But honestly, between you and me, Tucker, who reads that?
Nobody does, but God forbid that it's not right. Because
I
the thing
know.
with legal
No, I
content,
know.
laws are different in different
I
countries
know.
and different
I know.
markets anyway. So even if you translate it
Yeah.
perfectly, it probably doesn't apply. So what you need to do is have in market legal counsel
Yeah,
reviewing all of that.
exactly.
So that's a
For sure.
whole different animal.
Yeah, it's a whole different. So there, in legal, there's like two approaches. Like, what is it called? Like low, soft legal or hard legal translation, where something like that. Somebody once told me, one of my vendors told me had this definition, and it was interesting because it was like we can do a good, correct, faithful to the source translation, and that's like low level,
Yeah.
or we can go all high and actually really localized and adapt this to our local laws.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's not my decision to make. That's a decision for my legal team, the legal team of my company to make. And when I run by them, they're like, no, we don't want to do hard
Really?
legal because because they said the language, like the law that we apply is Ontario law, because that's where our company is incorporated. And so the law that stands is Canada's Ontario law. And so as long as it's correct, we're good to go. And that's what we did. Much to the chagrin of many of my translators who were not happy with this.
See, that brings us back to how we started this conversation. Linguists are always going to want to go full quality, full localization, everything.
Yeah.
And good, right? There needs to be this pushing, this balance.
Yeah.
And then you have the business stakeholders who say, well, yeah, but we're operating in an environment with scarcity, so we need to really pick and choose what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
I'm watching the clock here. We're out of time, Giulia. I could talk to you for 2
Already?
hours about this. Well, yes, because I got to go. I told you it was going to be a quick one today.
Yeah.
But that's, like Giulia said, this is all available. There's some great stuff over here. We didn't get through a portion of it. If you would like to learn more about content prioritization, or heck, if you want to go steal some of our graphics and slap them into your presentation for Loc World coming up, do that. It's a great resource. Thank you so much for putting this together, Giulia. Any closing thoughts, plugs before I take us out today?
No, I mean, yes. You need a content prioritization framework. Absolutely, it is a non-negotiable, and you will really look good with your leadership and your internal colleagues and stakeholders. It also helps navigate how to resource effectively as a team, because usually localization teams are they're under-resourced and overworked, and having a framework helps bring some methods to the chaos otherwise. Yeah.
And if you've never created a localization framework before and you'd like help doing that, guess what? Yep, exactly. Nimsy's here to help. Giulia's here to help. Look us up. info@nimsy.com. Giulia@nimsy.com, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Is your email?
Giulia.greco@nimsy.com. But you can just go on the office hours of Nimsy and book me, and then I can put you in touch with other people, or I can help you myself, depends on what it is. So that's always the first line of defense.
There you go. Well, thank you, Giulia. I'm going to take us out here. Ladies, gentlemen, chat, we're out of time for today. If you enjoyed this experience, and join us tomorrow when I'm talking to Nimsy's very own Giulia Akulkova, a resident and walking encyclopedia of language technology. We're reviewing our annual flagship report, the Language Technology Radar, where we catalog all of the different hundreds and hundreds of language technologies available in our industry. It's an absolute must to either read the report, watch the show, do both. So we will see you tomorrow, Wednesday, here on the Nimsy LinkedIn channel. I appreciate our guest today, Giulia. I appreciate all my colleagues here at Nimsy Insights doing the hard work so I can have these interesting conversations. And finally, I appreciate you, the audience, who are joining us live today, and I look forward to next time. Cheers.